Okay, we're going to try out something new here. I've been trying to find a bunch of podcasts that are on YouTube, and a lot of the folks that do podcasting, they just take and put a static image on there, and then that becomes their podcast on YouTube. But some folks like Gary V and Podcasters Roundtable and stuff, they record the whole thing, and then they have the audio recorded on something like a recording device, and then they can use that for their podcast on iTunes and also show the video on YouTube, because my TEOTWAWKI is more about videos, and I would like some podcasts on there. Gary Vaynerchuk does an entertaining one, but not everyone does their entire podcast on video. And since video is so watched these days, I think it's a market that should be being tapped into, especially for video content creators and such. So I'm going to try this and see if this shit works. So I have my phone right there, and then it's stuck to my big sliding glass door, and then that way the lighting's better than the shit if I'm facing over here. And then I have the audio microphone here plugged into the Tascam DR40, and I'm going to see how that works. I hate being too close to the microphone. It makes podcasting kind of difficult when you're talking into the mic like this all day, and you don't have anything, going on. I don't have one of them cool arms that reach down and to where I could have it around. It's just sitting on my desk. So we'll see. It's definitely got a better sound to it, because when I bump the desk, it doesn't vibrate through the arm and all that. They have really cool, expensive ones, but I can't afford really cool, expensive. So that's what we're going to do. I'm in my casual work shirt that I've cut the sleeves off of, and yeah, that's about it. So this will be a test podcast, and I just want to see how it's received by you folks. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, you'll hear all the same words, but you can run over to TEOTWAWKI channel /podcast, and then there's a list of all the podcast creators there, and they're separated by audio and then video. And so it's hard to find a lot of really good podcasts that are, done well and put together. Not that I'm saying mine would be done well either. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and I'm going to upload the video and say what's up. So it's kind of an introductory to the video world of podcasting. So yeah, as Survival Lily always says, yeah, which I think is great. That's kind of her signature almost, and I understand it because it beats the shit out of going and So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the last 3 episodes I did on EMPs, and talking about the plausibility and the reality of it, the violence and the psychology that if that were to happen, how you're supposed to be maybe. I should turn off my damn messages because it keeps shutting off my camera. So we have been discussing EMPs as far as being prepared. I don't like using the terminology preppers, because even though we have been lumped into that group of preppers, I don't think that all of us that are prepared, or as the government would say, go to ready.gov. We're just folks that have families or businesses or lives and friends that we would like to be able to take care of because they're close and we enjoy their company. Maybe we like them a lot more than just your average acquaintance. And so we prepare for that. And it's not a mindset like doomsday and zombies, which are just another form of prepping genre. But we just prepare in the same way we prepare for a road trip or anything else like that. So as prepared thinking people, an EMP is one of the more plausible and real things that could come from not only just nature, but crazy ass people that don't like us for God knows what reason. And so we have to be ready for it. My philosophy on that is just to get the hell out of Dodge until the fires go out, especially if you're near or in a big city, because the chaos will be too extreme and you want to remove yourself from the situation. You want to get out of it, just like a bar fight. You don't want to try to be in the middle of it and trying to work it out and get people to think clearly during that period of time, because it's not going to happen. So you want to just back out the door and walk away, because even if the police show up and break up the bar fight, you might get arrested just like everyone else in the bar until they figure this shit out. And so you'll be detained as a witness or as a suspect or as an attacker. You don't know. So I don't want to be there, and I don't even want to be in my city where I live once an EMP goes off, because the police have a job to do, and their job will be protecting everyone. And you could be deemed or classified as a vigilante if you take matters into your own hands. It's not to say you don't have a right to protect your property and all that, but it does become a gray area, even in my state, with one of the best castle doctrines in the country. So you could still be detained and arrested while they figure out whether what you're saying holds to the castle doctrine. And if one of the people you might have to shoot survives, they might have a different story. It's chaotic. And so you could sit at the police station for a few days in holding while they sort through the bullshit to see what was going on and that you're a bad guy or not. And if it's an EMP, are they going to have the communications and the ability to log on to bigger networks to see if you're a crazy SOB or just an average person that's lived in the community for years? That's not a problem. I have better things to do with even 5 hours than to sit in a police station and explain my actions. Now, that's not to say that we don't have an obligation to explain our actions. It's not what I'm saying at all. They have a job to do, and you have a responsibility to explain what went on, whether it's the bar fight or the person that broke into your home and you had to shoot them. So you have that responsibility. So you're kind of in a quandary of, what are you going to do with your time? And as soon as you realize it's a collapse, even just financial, and everything is going to shit, you don't have a lot of time to make your decisions. So my theory is just to get out of Dodge for a while. I'm not a bug out, run for the hills, go crawl underground in a bunker kind of guy. But I do believe when things get to a point of critical, that even soldiers on the battlefield may find from time to time to fall back and kind of regroup and assess what the hell's going on. And that's how I look at it. It's like I need to I need to get away from the chaos, get out of the bar fight basically, and go somewhere where I can stop and think and evaluate what's going on, and then come up with a plan and make sure those that I care about that are with me are safe. And then you can put together your battle plan or whatever it is. But if you stay in there, you get swept up, and then once again, then you might be sitting at the police station or in a morgue, but explaining your actions. Now, if you're in the morgue, your actions are pretty explainable, you know, you fucking died. I think it's important to just walk away, not because you're a coward or a chicken shit or you don't have a plan. It's just grab your stuff and go, and you should have a plan of where you're going to go. The safest, closest, quickest way you can get to it, to where if you can't take your vehicle and you can't grab up all your year's supply of beans, Band-Aids, and bullets, you can get away and protect yourself and then reconnoiter what the shit's happening. And so, you know, if you're one of those prepper types that have mountains of beans, Band-Aids, and bullets, then you should have them cached away on your property somewhere to where looters can't find them just by walking into, you know, like your house is a giant Walmart with shelves everywhere and they just start taking your shit. You know, you want to have that hidden. That way you don't have that variable in the back of your mind rattling around telling you, well, I every instinct I have tells me to get the hell out of Dodge for a while, even if it's a couple hours or a day or two. And you're thinking, well, but if I leave my supplies, that's how am I going to survive without all that food storage, without all that ammo, without all those guns? And it's a very real thing. So you're gonna hesitate, and he who hesitates is lost. So, or is it has lost? Yeah, whatever. The most committed wins, and if you have a plan and you're committed to it, you're gonna win. So if you have your stuff cached away and hidden and locked up to where a looter can't just come in and take your stuff, they'll grab shit in your pantry and stuff and run away. But you don't have that variable to think about. And then you can go up into the hills, the mountains, even if it's just a few miles out of town in a nice place that you found to where you think it would be safer, because most of the crazies are going to be heading inward. It's like an implosion. And they're all going to be coming in, stealing and robbing and looting, just like in Katrina. They weren't running from the water. They were running to the mall. So you have some time, and if your stuff is protected, even from fire or flood, then you don't have to worry about that. And all you have to worry about is bugging out for a while. So you have to have a plan. And to me, there are many, many scenarios that could come our way in life, from economic collapse to a pandemic, just social unrest. But those can always be isolated out, and the government's very good at isolating and departmentalizing and keeping a lid on it and keeping it under control. And that's why I think an EMP is the most logical thing to plan for, because it is so out of the blue and it affects so massive of an area. You can't compartmentalize it as government or FEMA and put it in a box and then go, there, now we can figure this shit out. The rest of the United States is doing fine. We just had this one group of shit going on. They lose communications. It might not melt all the power lines, but just the voltages are gonna, melt power lines, especially if it's a CME or a super EMP, which puts out so much voltage that it would be like a solar flare. It can burn up transmission wires. They might be able to protect, their big super transformers, the really big ones, and the SCADA systems involved. But the wires that went from where it was made to your house are on fire. Your local transformers have definitely caught fire. So it's no different than, there's still farmers out there farming. There's still slaughterhouses making meat. There's all these things still going on. But if the trucks can't get the food to you, then you are not going to have a stocked grocery store. So it's the link. It's that 3 to 10 mile link from point A to point B, from the distribution center to your store, from the power station to your house. These are the things that are very susceptible to even an EMP that's not a super EMP. And so Dr. Pry kind of brushed over that, but he didn't really talk about the link in between what they can protect and where you live. My cat has decided to become a big mouth and just comes in meowing all the time. For years, to 10, 12 years, the cat would just, you didn't even know I had a cat. And now he's gotten old and decides to just talk ad nauseum as he walks from this end to the house to the other. So that's probably the noise you'll hear in the background. So it's the linkage that caused the cascading effect that will drop our country. The power lines melt down. The communications from the electric company to their guys in the field might break down for a few days. Getting organized and putting it all back together might break down for a while. If the electric company where you live has a lot of those smaller transformers in their warehouse or in a yard somewhere, but it's 20 miles away, and normally they would just call up and it would be delivered that day on a truck because they are heavy. They might not be able to make that phone call. Their cell tower might not be working. And so those little stupid ass things are what, are the fly in the ointment, the straws that break the camel's back. They can protect all the big shit they want. But if we don't have communications and we don't have logistics and we don't have first-in inventory, all those systems might be working on both ends, but it's the in-between that can screw you. And that's how chaos could take over and not be able to be compartmentalized and have the FEMA and law enforcement put a lid on it quick enough to where it starts to snowball. And by the time they can get the power up and running, no one gives a shit. Fire departments don't go into some neighborhoods because they're so violent. Well, we still have a fire department, but the bad guys are stopping it. They don't want them there. So houses burn to the ground. Well, what happens in this kind of situation where the bad guys start realizing that these trucks that are running are full of food or fuel? They're going to be attacking them on the freeway. Law enforcement's not going to hear about it for a day or two. Little ass things that can be tweaked and fixed might not get tweaked and fixed in time. So it's very precision. It's like a little watch, and if one little tiny gear gets bent or out of whack, if you don't fix it before the next time it comes around, it just, the whole thing stops. That's it. Your $10,000 watch just doesn't work because of a 50-cent little gear or spring or something that causes the whole thing to collapse. And we in the prepper community and survivalists and people that just try to be aware and protect their families, we sometimes get so focused on the big picture that when you're talking to somebody about it, like an EMP, they go, well, they don't have that technology, and even if it did, then they would protect those things, or they could fix that transformer. Yeah, they could, right up until that little spring breaks and communications are lost, or the truck driver gets shot in the chaos where he lives, or his truck doesn't start, or his car doesn't start to get to work, or he doesn't get the phone call to be told, hey, we have an emergency, we need a transformer of this size on your semi in the next hour, and he doesn't get that call. Or he gets the call, and he goes to the warehouse, and no one's there because they couldn't get to work, or they got shot, or their electronic door opener wouldn't work, and nobody could get in because their little card keys won't work. And so now they're trying to find the janitor, but his phone doesn't work, to come over and open the freaking lock with a key because everyone else is so high tech, they got little swipey badges. And so there's another 3 or 4 hour delay. Somebody drives to the janitor's house to find the key to get the word out that we need this opened up. Or the forklift doesn't start, or the truck doesn't start, or somebody came in and slashed all the tires. There are so many million little dopey ass stupid things that can happen. And as most preparedness minded people, we get this what I call normalcy bias for preppers. And as preppers, we always laugh at people and go, oh yeah, that's normalcy bias. You think it's going to be that way. We're no different. We think that these things can be fixed, or we're falling back on our years of military training, to where we saw how it was done in the military and how the team worked cohesively to complete the objective. And they look at these scenarios in that mindset when all the little springs are broken, and it's not going to work that way. And so I think that is painting with a broad brush when people go, well, an EMP wouldn't hurt us. Oh yeah, it would collapse us. And I know people that run power plants in my area, and one of them was that way. He's like, no, we got all spare parts in Tucson, which is 40, 50 miles away, and we could fix it all within a week or two. Oh well, a week or two in my little area, that's fine. We'll deal with it like a power outage, in the Midwest or up north when the lines just freeze and snap, or whatever the fuck they do. So a week is fine. When it's every community all across the country in all 3,000 counties and all the little towns that are dealing with the same problem, now it's a big diversion to where bad people can start screwing around. You're talking a week. And I asked my friend, I go, well, what if his truck won't start to where he can't even come into work? And then he paused and thought about it and went, well, then we would be screwed, because as time moves along, more things start collapsing and falling apart. So we get a myopic view of our little slice of how, if it crashed and burned in our industry, it would be fixed, but you're not factoring in the thousands of little shamrock industries, as they call them, that support the bigger industry, that get shit to the bigger industry, that get it to your door. And every one of those have a little line of logistics to keep the warehouse door opening, to getting the truck driver to the site, to pick up the transformers, to drive them across 50 miles, to get there. And nobody shoots at this truck driver just by random acts of stupidity and violence, or the roads are cluttered up because let's say everyone's car's working, but they wrecked because they're crazy. Just like when it rains, all of a sudden people just get in a wreck, or somebody shoots somebody and creates a roadblock, and now the truck can't get there. And while he's waiting for the police that maybe can't show up, or the tow truck, he gets shot and all his gas gets stolen. It's that simple. So to me, EMPs are the most plausible thing that could happen across the country in the blink of an eye. It's not like a pandemic that they can track it and they can find patient zero and they can stop flights and they can put a lid on it. It's a big lid, but they get a lid on it and they can start tracking and doing shit to stop it. An EMP it's like that. It's like 1 minute I'm talking to you and then everything quits. the phone just stops. Everything stops. And it didn't just happen in my house, like I didn't pay my electric bill and my power's off. It's happened to everyone, everywhere in the country, or maybe even the world. And so too much hesitation will be trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, what do we do about it, how do we, take soup cans and run strings there and talking to them like we used to do when we were a kid. How do we talk to people? How do we figure out what's going on? How do we figure out the logistics of fixing it when we can't even talk to the warehouse, 500 miles away? It starts creating 20-minute delays, 2-hour delays, 3-day delays, and pretty soon it's just too late. It is metastasized and it is over and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's why I was talking on EMPs. I think it's very real. If people don't, that's fine. Prepare for zombies. They're not as real. They would be fun, way more fun than an EMP. But there are certain levels of what can and can't happen. And to me, EMPs are the most top of the list. Financial collapse could happen, but they would be tweaking it all along and marginalizing it and having it under control to where there was not a collapse. People would be pissed, sure. There would be riots, sure. But there's a control factor to that. Pandemics, we just talked about, there's a control factor to it. It's not going to spread that fast unless it was a zombie plague, to where when you bit your neighbor, he threw and went and bit his next neighbor and then all of a sudden it spread so fast. But no, it doesn't work that way usually, and so they would figure that out and get a lid on it pretty damn quick. Also, just like Ebola and all those other things. So we live in a society to where they can control and manage and marginalize a lot of things, to where the Black Plague wouldn't take out as many people as it did in the 1600s or whenever that shit happened. So when you start looking at the things that maybe you're going to prepare for, there are very few things that are plausible, and an EMP is definitely one of them, because nature can do it to us, like in the 1800s with the Carrington event. Our enemies can do it to us because the technology's out there. So it could happen really easy. It's very hard to see it coming until it's happened. Nuclear war is even easier to deal with because we can see them coming. We have some time. We have missile defense systems and things to where, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. Before any of that happened, there would be years of chit-chat and yakking about, well, don't bomb us, just like the Cold War and shit. And it's all done for money and games, and they don't want to, destroy the planet. They just want us all dead. So, they talk themselves out of dropping nuclear bombs all the time, except the crazy extremists. But the crazy extremists now have learned about EMPs, so why amass thousands of nuclear warheads when just one will do it? And so that's my opinion. I could be totally wrong and missing this, but I really don't think so, because there's been so many talks by Peter Pry and people that it might not be the only silver bullet that could, in the eyes of bad people, to take out America, but it is one of the shiniest ones. And there are other ways that we can collapse as a nation and as a people, but unless it's like Noah and the ark and a flood, it can be marginalized even by inept governments, because trust me, they might not be very good at feeding you and your family in a crisis like Katrina, but they're pretty good at getting a lid on it and controlling the people to where they don't lose control of their little game. They don't want the kid throwing a temper tantrum and just knocking all the pieces off the Monopoly board and throwing everyone's money everywhere. They don't want that to happen. So that's how they look at it. So they have an agenda, and that's the deep state people and whoever the fuck they are. So that's my take on all this. I hope everything worked. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you do on YouTube. Subscribe. I'm going to have a playlist just for podcasts, and then I will be putting them over at TEOTWAWKI.com/podcast. That'll bring up a page of all the programs that are on there. Just pick the one you like to listen to, whether you like it in audio or in video format. Go there and they'll all be listed there. I hope you guys are all having a awesome and great day, and I will talk to you later. Enjoy the apocalypse, whatever may come.